the Power to the Flower podcast. My name is Nairobi and I'm the host. And today I'm joined by a special guest. He is the co-founder of Firehouse Cannabis, also the co-founder and executive director of Reclaim Roxbury, and is also the co-founder of Mass Eon. Literally, this is a very great person to just know and to be hearing his point of view in terms of what we believe on social equity and just being a fierce advocate, someone who understands equity in the state of Massachusetts and what leveling the playing field looks like. Everyone, welcome Armani White. Hi, Armani.
Hey, thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. So I know we talked a little bit off camera, just some of the work that we are seeing with regards to some of the state house bills and the legislation with regards to cannabis reform.
Yep.
But where do you stand on any of these things in general?
Oh, man, yeah, there's so much to say about it. But, yeah, first off, thank you for having me.
Mm-hmm.
And, as you said, I'm a part of a number of, I got my hands on a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like right now, what's happening at the State House when it comes to cannabis legislation is pretty scary for a lot of small business owners.
Mm-hmm.
People feel like some of the proposals will really just change, kind of move the goalposts and change the whole game for folks.
Yeah.
Right when they're trying to get started, and the big question is why right now, and why so quick, why so big, why so much. So yeah, lots to be said. As both a member of, and like you said, co-founding member of
Mass Eon. And also your own cannabis brand.
And
Mm-hmm.
we've been, with Eon, we've been advocating for social equity in the cannabis industry since the start, since
Yep.
2016.
Yep.
It's been a long, almost 10 years now. And so, yeah, and a lot of the people behind the current push are, weren't necessarily a part of those conversations, and aren't necessarily as committed to social equity, frankly. And so it's interesting to see that be the reasoning behind this push, is to support social equity. So yeah, lots to say, but I can keep going if you'd like.
No, I mean, we could.
Questions,
No, that was definitely just
answer.
where you stood on it, and obviously, I think the general perspective is trying to level out what we know is the social equity stance against a lot of these different folks who are advocating on the other side, and there's always a question of what's the side of the legislation. So we have MSOs and those sort of operators who are larger scale operators looking to get access to more licenses rather. Main reason being because this is a part of what one of the bill provisions has. So there's the retail caps raising that. There's also a change with in general, the Cannabis Control Commission. There's talks about the social equity fund and how that could change. And I really don't know what specifics certain senators would rather see versus the other. But I know that with Mass Eon, you do a lot of the advocacy in that, sort of just talking to legislators and having different points of view, and hopefully being able to do a little bit of the legislative briefings, just letting people know, okay, you guys legislators need to know what we stand on and how that looks like. So other just thing that you do that's really important, I think, is also Reclaim Roxbury.
Yes.
And one of the things that I love about the work that you do in Reclaim Roxbury is that it's still social equity, but it's just not necessarily cannabis. So the concept of social equity, meaning that, folks of color, specifically in neighborhoods where they've been impacted by any sort of traumatic event, not just by the war on drugs, but thinking about what gentrification looks like for a community of color. Yep. With Reclaim Roxbury, you guys do that to what capacity, and sort of start off with this idea, why did that come about?
Yeah. So I think my life's work has definitely been about advancing social justice and civil rights. Sorry, let me get closer to this.
No, you're
I'm trying to get on my podcast game. But yeah, it's been about advancing those things, and I actually got into the cannabis industry and cannabis advocacy because of my advocacy around criminal justice reform, which is kind of what I cut my teeth in policy advocacy-wise, stop and frisk issues, making sure that police aren't stopping and frisking, black and brown folks in our community, people like me at the time when I was younger, and often having cannabis on them, leading to further issues for them if they're in a school zone and they have cannabis. Now they're selling drugs in a school zone, and that brings further
that's a different
issue.
charge,
right? And so with equitable opportunities now, we started in 2016 as an effort to try to make sure Black and brown people have a way into the industry, and have done like a bunch of different things, from technical assistance, like actually helping people learn how to get in the industry, briefing people, to playing kind of defense to kind of the other side, if you will, people who don't care about social equity or don't necessarily care about small businesses, making sure that if they are trying to take away equity, that we can defend it. And that's what we are currently doing with Eon, and I can give you more details.
Feel free. Go ahead.
On like that, and talk about the reclaim stuff too. With, if folks don't know, recently there was a big omnibus bill in the House that was passed that has a whole bunch of different changes to the cannabis industry, like Nairobi just explained. And so, for us, those changes came out without any kind of input from
collaboration.
Communities impacted by the war on drugs, and it's something that we have a lot of issues with. And so, kind of think about the work that I also do around Reclaim Roxbury. It's a similar thing, often in Black and brown communities, or often rather Black and brown people, like you mentioned, deal with systems that don't allow them to succeed, to thrive, to build equity, and we have been advocating for in Roxbury to make sure that public land in the city, land that was taken by urban renewal due to urban renewal policies from people of color in Boston, that land be used for public good, so public land for public good.
Yep.
And that's led to a bunch of different, basically 13 parcels of land being developed by diverse development teams, bringing basically around 1,400 units of affordable housing, mixture of rental and home ownership opportunities.
Wow.
And like deeply affordable, middle, and market, like a third. And the kind of framework that we bring to that work is like, you have to intervene to make sure that your community is protected. And I think that same ethos is the same ethos.
Same in Mass Eon.
With Eon is like we have to be there and have to show up if we want to see things the way that we want them to be, because history has shown us that that's not the case in this country, unfortunately. Yep. And so we have to be very vigilant and on top of that kind of thing. So I'm kind of blessed to be able to do both. You
definitely are.
Roxbury, so.
Yeah, you're blessed, and you bless others, which I love. I mean, recently you just got honored with a very distinguished award, and the suits were out. Everybody was looking fly. Congratulations. And so, what was that organization?
Yeah. So
and the award.
We basically Reclaim Roxbury had a celebration March 6th, the celebration of Roxbury Legends, where we honored an honoree. Basically, we honored someone who is like a legend in our community, Roxbury Legend. Greg Minot, who's a developer from Jamaica, but who works here in Roxbury, a Black man, building and advocating for affordable housing, but also like community-led in terms of the visioning of how that affordable housing is built. And so we honored him, and then in honoring him, we had the City of Boston's Office of Economic Inclusion come, and they surprised both Greg and I with awards, which is the award that we got. So, everyone was all dressed up and nice for the celebration, which was celebrating the revitalization of Nubian Square and these parcels of land, and all of the efforts in our community to create, wealth in Roxbury and ownership. Yeah. So that was a really fun event, and it was dope. And everyone should come to next year's event.
I mean, I'm down to go.
There you go.
So okay, Nubian Square was like a really big one. I mean, that's a big, huge victory. So congratulations. I think because even thinking about like renaming Nubian Square and what that effort was, a lot of people don't realize that like in Massachusetts, we actually had slave owners here. Oh, yeah. And we had a lot that are like still named in the city of Boston, just in every different corner. And Nubian Square was one way to reclaim that, literally, like no pun intended, but yeah.
Literally.
So with this victory, how do you feel like, this one would be a model for success for more work to advance? Like, is there any one thing that you feel like stood out in the process of like how to make it work collaboratively rather?
Yeah, I think what I have heard from other people is that our model should be done in other places. And we've been maybe eyeing some other places that we could do what we're doing in Roxbury.
Like in the city of Boston? Or
outside of the city of Boston, maybe in other states.
Oh, okay.
Maybe in Rhode Island, maybe in Connecticut.
Maybe in Lawrence, Massachusetts. What's up?
maybe Springfield. We don't know. Yeah, we're looking at different places, but the idea is that there are a lot of communities, Black and brown communities that are in and around cities, in different places, and those communities are often have been, they have been invested in historically, and despite that, folks there have been able to thrive or survive, and now times have changed. A lot of those communities are seen as like valuable places to live, and there's an opportunity for folks that live in those communities to think about, when and where possible, how to take advantage of existing public land, and ensure that with coming development, with coming interest, that wealth is like, not just for the people who are coming, but for the people who have lived there historically, and doing it in an equitable way so that people don't get like gobbled up. And
that's really cool. That's really cool, because it's this concept of like buying back the block. Right. I think that like we just recently heard on the news that there was some news coming out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and just like what Black Wall Street was formerly, and looking to reinvigorate that for, the Black community. And similarly, we've seen where there's been efforts, I think like even Mike Epps, like on a celebrity level, where he had a TV show where he was actually buying up the block and like, buying. Yeah, it's a dope show. It was him and his wife. But yeah, please do, because it's a great show. But they, made an effort to fix up different houses and, buying it not just for the family, but I think for in general, making sure that it is Black owned and keeping the integrity of, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I actually did see that.
It's dope.
Cowboy hat on. He's dope.
And very funny in that concept. And you mentioned urban renewal, but this is something that a lot of people, a lot of different communities were harmed by literally during the same time, juxtaposed to like the 70s. Urban renewal it affected Lawrence, it affected Lowell, and I'll just speak on this because this is the community I live in, but Lowell had
teach me.
Yeah. So it had actually a very beautiful Greek community, and Lowell at that time, as diverse as it is now still, they were just divided by different like ethnic factions, I guess you could say, and sometimes racially as well. But it did mean that there was a Greek community here, and if urban renewal projects came in to create a highway, like that means that the Greek community no longer has the opportunity to live there. There were so many different homes. People had to move out of the city of Lowell. And just like what that did, it effectively created the most ugliest highway exit, which is literally directly in front of a brick home that just like those people were protesting to not allow for the project to continue. And so it didn't continue, but what it left was like, you very awkwardly can see where the highway cutoff line is right in front of a house.
Wow.
It's so crazy, but definitely recommend it. Reading on that. It's on the Lowell Connector and just the history behind that.
Definitely will. Yeah, I love that history, and it's true. Across America, like a lot of the things that we face in one community, we face in others. The Interstate Highway Defense Act, that's something that affected all of America.
Yeah.
So, depending on how hard your community fought back or not, things change dramatically for the better or for the worse. For
exactly.
But,
fighting back is a big thing.
Yeah, and showing up is important.
Yep.
That's like that's been the history, I think, of Black and brown communities of
Advocacy.
America, working class folks, is just showing up and getting it done.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what does I think Reclaim Roxbury is obviously a neighborhood sort of organization. At least it started out that way. So, in terms of outreach there versus like outreach with Mass Eon, how do you engage with the community to make sure that all members are actively involved? Like, how can a social equity applicant in Springfield, for example, get involved with some of the work that you guys do at Mass Eon?
Yeah. Great question. So, Mass Eon Equitable Opportunities, now we've held workshops essentially to get people to learn about different aspects of the industry. In those workshops, we have held mostly in Roxbury, in Boston, at at Black Market in Nubian Square. Yeah. Shout out to them, Kai and Chris Grant. And then we've also held them at Nudia. Recently, we held some at Nudia and Fenway. Shout out to Ross and that team. Yep. But who's also an Eon member, founding member. But yeah, I think our thing is we're like a nonprofit. I think that's the tough thing about all of this stuff is, right? It's like Reclaim Roxbury is a nonprofit. It started off of the energy of everyday people deciding to spend hours of the day they could spend doing something that didn't raise their blood pressure, committing to something that raises their blood pressure but also improves the world. And I think that that's not easy to do and to sustain long term, and there's not a lot of funding, frankly. Like with Eon, we have been blessed to get some funding, we were able to apply to Ben and Jerry Foundation.
Yay!
Yeah, and they supported us big time, and we've advocated to get funding through the state budget process, and we were able to get some funding that way.
Some funding acquired.
So, we're trying to do our thing, and then we have membership, or rather we have donations from different cannabis companies that are like care about social justice.
Yep.
And we have fundraisers, and then we have our new Massachusetts Cannabis Equity Council, MCEC, which is basically a group of social equity and economic empowerment owned businesses that have come together as like a trade association.
Okay,
MCEC,
cool. Yeah.
To really in response to this whole license cap thing.
Yep.
To push it back. But still bit to say, like, we're all not very well funded, both as the social equity businesses, as Eon. When we say we get a little bit of money, it's really just a little bit, right? Like, when we think about high-powered lobbyists, they get paid, $150K a year type.
Yeah.
That's a lot of, 6 times the Eon budget. So everything we're doing is labor of love, and we need more people to help. And so when we do these events and such, we're not able to always go everywhere. And so I think we have held some in Western Mass. We recently have held some fundraisers with, God, I forget the name of it.
It's okay.
Broccoli Gallery, I believe.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and Sharon.
And Sharon,
yep.
Shout outs to them and New Leaf, which is a major supporter.
Yeah.
And a few other folks who I am forgetting, and sorry about that.
It's okay. But the point is.
The point is we are not well funded to be everywhere, and so we try our best. And we try our best really hard. It's like important that we do that. Like if you're a social equity business, you're watching this, you're not tapped in with Eon, follow us, Mass_Eon, and get tapped in. And then also the government's responsible for the kind of things that we are trying to do. Frankly, the CCC is truly responsible for that.
For the outreach.
And they do that kind of stuff. But we know that it's often done best with people who are in the community, grassroots. So we've often partnered with the CCC, have had the commissioners come out to our events. And
Yep. And I've seen that too.
Yeah.
And I love that because it does say that there is collaboration on the regulatory side and the legislative side when you work with like the legislators, so the decision makers. But ultimately what you're saying is, and we can obviously see, Mass Eon through advocacy has become a huge stakeholder, especially with the united power behind that. The grassroots sort of like work that you're talking about, like the people who are involved, that being a labor of love, that's a price that you can't put a price tag on that, period. You know what I mean? Because it also just says, where are your principles, where are your values, and those things. I would love to see more like, we live out here in the North Shore, but some stuff like that. I think that there's like always issues too. We've talked about this, like different businesses like out in Springfield and in Holyoke, like that Western Mass area. Like, it's difficult as it is to just get around through the state, and the state being as small as it is, like Massachusetts, but wanting to go to events or legislative things. I know that Kevin Gilnack, and shout out to Kevin because he's he's the best, but he's also always setting those like talking points, the updates, and saying, hey, there's a bill, like if you're subscribed to this list, like with Mass Eon, you will find out that social equity provisions are being are under attack or something. And that is always told with the perspective of like, okay, here's the legislation, here's the hearing, here's how you can submit, here's how you can get involved. So I know that especially for those social equity applicants or licensees, applicants or operators, there's different ways that you can actually submit and get involved, like writing testimony, which I've done before, calling the legislature, anybody in the legislature really that's involved in one of those committees, or even just writing specifically to your representative. So it could be your state rep, your state senator, even getting sometimes the city council involved to write a letter on behalf of you in your district as a constituent and as also an operator. So just wanted to throw that out there because I think it's important people know how to get involved and be involved.
Masseon.com. You can go there, sign up to our newsletter, and you'll get the same emails that Nairobi just mentioned, and all of the opportunities to take action. We make it really easy. You just click a button, email your folks.
Yeah.
We make it really easy. We just need folks watching to get involved.
Absolutely. So, and by now, everybody who's probably listened to this podcast in season 1, that I've been bigging up Mass Eon for a long time, since trying to just get everybody, if you live in Massachusetts, just aware of there are people who do this and there are people who are true to it, you know what I mean, and want to bring, the value back to social equity licensees when we're talking about policy provisions, taking that away. So let's pivot onto policy real quick. how do you specifically feel? How do we maintain that integrity of social equity licensees when there is threats to their businesses? And how do we continue to collaborate if there's any room for collaboration? Or how do you best get that point across? Like, what are some of the things in policy that you feel all of this could be a little bit better just to make sure that social equity licenses are not devalued and be listened to?
Oh my God, yeah. It's so tough to exist as a cannabis business because of the fact that there's, federal
regulation.
It's federally legal. And so that means that every state decides their cannabis policy state by state. And depending on your state where you live, the policies look different. Here in Massachusetts, when the industry was started, they decided that one shop can only have up to 3 licenses. And the goal of that was kind of like an anti-monopoly goal to prevent consolidation and kind of like a Walmart effect with cannabis shops. And there's been a number of other things done with the cannabis industry to also prevent there being kind of like a Walmart effect with cannabis shops. Another thing is you can't have more than like 10% ownership in a license. And there's the social equity program that exists that allows people to apply to it if they've been impacted by the war on drugs. I was arrested for marijuana possession, as was my business partner, and so we qualified for the social equity and economic empowerment program. And so we took advantage of that, and we have a business that's on the way to opening, which is exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. And so
it's Firehouse Cannabis, if you can't tell.
Cannabis, Firehouse on the shirt, Firehouse.
Why did you guys name it Firehouse? There's a story, right?
House of Fire Weed.
Okay.
We're going to have the fire products, and my business partner is a former firefighter.
Fair, okay.
Who was growing marijuana and got busted and did fed time in prison. And
Sean, right?
Sean Burt, Sean. Good, it's my better half.
Aw, that's cute. Bromance.
I'm stealing his line. That's his line. It's good. It's good to have to like your business partner. It's
that's
important.
true. You need that.
But yeah, good dude. And we have been trying to get this thing open for a long time, and there's been a lot of barriers to social equity businesses surviving, and I can speak on Boston specifically.
Yeah.
But I mean, oh God, there's so much to say. I mean, from the start, the rollout, things were changed by the city of Boston.
Madness.
And I think the new process that was rolled out, it was good that Eon was able to intervene and help create the Boston Cannabis Board, which created a 1-to-1 requirement for every one kind of like Walgreens-esque cannabis shop. One equity business would have to be licensed, which is really good. And so we were able to do that, and then us getting open. So that happened. So we finally are able to get our license, and then we had a big kind of a MSO try to open up right next door to us.
Crazy.
Which would have threatened our ability to have a successful business. People say, liquor stores right across the street or Dunkin' Donuts. It's not the same market. It's not the same situation. You can't.
Explain that a little, because I think people don't understand what that looks like. And so he's talking about these Walgreens shops. Think about how Walgreens is very accessible throughout a massive lens throughout the whole nation. Meaning it's multi-state operator.
Cannabis. Think about you walk in a place that kind of feels like an Apple store, and you're like, wow, this is not, what it used to be like when you used to buy weed when it was illegal. And it makes you think, wow, all these people in prison still, and this is how weed is being sold. And so, these companies, I'm not trying to say that all these people are like necessarily bad people. I don't want to go that far, but I would say that these are big companies that are trying to grow and scale. And in America, companies do that. And they have a model. That business model is to try to get as many licenses as possible and expand. A number of these companies are publicly traded, not in the U.S., but on the Canadian Stock Exchange because it's federally legal here. Yeah. And they have a lot at stake in their success, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to succeed, and they don't necessarily care about social equity. Yeah. And so we talk about these companies. They might sell, weed that you like to smoke, but do they care about the fact that, black and brown people were impacted by this drug, and who's at the ownership table? Who's getting, if they have an all-black kind of staff, that's one thing, but who's in ownership? Who's getting the big bucks, frankly? Right. And in Massachusetts, the goal of the industry was to be equitable. When when voters voted on the ballot question, part of it was that the state would create a pathway create an equitable industry.
Yeah.
So it's important that, for us, it's been so hard kind of navigating this whole kind of like, the city regulations, and then you have to worry about ever-changing city regulations, and there's the state at the CCC level, the regulations that change there, and then you have to think about what the legislature is doing and whether or not they're changing things like what's happening now. And there's been some good changes that have happened in the past that we've been a part of, like the 2-driver rule, getting rid of that, making sure that for delivery licenses that only social equity people can own those. And
extending that period,
although there's one more year left, we need to extend that. And then there's also with social consumption coming out, that's just for social equity. So Massachusetts, on the one hand, is one of the best states for social equity businesses. And at the same time, those non-social equity businesses are looking at the opportunity that exists there, and they want to expand.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these companies have 3 licenses, and they want to have more. And there are a number of businesses that have not succeeded in Massachusetts. Opening a business is hard in and of itself, like regardless. I don't know what the stat is, but like most businesses fail.
Yeah.
And so these businesses that are failing would love to be able to sell their business to another entity. And it's really hard to get your license often. It takes a lot of money, time, effort. And once you get it would be best, you'd like to not lose hundreds of thousands of dollars
of course.
Walk away from that. So you'd like to be able to transfer it. And so the thought is, let's go up to 6 licenses from 3, and then giving those companies more ability to buy more licenses. But for us, that's a lot to change so quickly.
Yeah.
And the thought is,
and it's a big bill. Like it's very.
That's not exactly. That's just one part of it.
Yeah.
So
it's a larger reform, and I think I don't really understand.
I can talk some more about like the strengths of it, like some good parts, because it's not all bad.
No.
And then we have some pieces that are
what I'm saying, but to speak to your point about like why this is all sort of like packaged all in one, and like it seems very rushed, and like what the hell, like what the hell, what the hell, Beyonce. But seriously, what we're seeing here is that it does seem like the timeline of it, but I don't know, and I'm gonna be frank with you, I don't know how much of it is due to the politics of it versus just the industry or whatever. I think the precedence from legislators to have a fix for the young new industry is like being shown, because we've seen that there was a whole bunch of bad news all over about the CCC. So I don't know if that's all encompassing and like they chose to do it all in once because it was like the right time. But I'm referring to it as like the big, beautiful cannabis bill, because dead ass is really that. Like, so where similarly we have the big, beautiful bill, quote unquote, by Trump, but it's a disaster, right? Voted down. But no, it's voted in. Yeah. So
I hear McGovern's trying to delay it.
We'll see, but I don't know. Right. So anyway, go ahead. Let's talk about some of the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, threats, a little SWOT analysis.
So I think, and also, for us, this kind of the urgency to pass a bill on cannabis feels, it just comes out of the blue, maybe is the best way to put it, because we have been in conversations with legislators for some time around fully funding the Social Equity Trust Fund, which just, for the first time gave out chunks of money, right? So these social equity businesses that were promised in 2016 funding to get their businesses off the ground are just now getting money, and we're talking about massively changing the game for the industry in a lot of different ways. But I guess there are some good things in the bill that are worth, that we also had advocated for in the past, which one of the things is adding medical vertical de-integration. I got some, let me drop my phone. I got some notes here so, I can make sure I'm on it. Well, here's the strengths, though. So the strengths of it, ending medical vertical de-integration. So with an exclusivity period for social equity businesses. So we actually, right now in Massachusetts, when medical marijuana came out, you had to have, from seed to sale control of the company. So you're planting it, you're growing it, cultivating it, moving it, packaging it, et cetera, and that takes a lot of money. So the average Joe who might have been impacted by the war on drugs, or even a really hardworking person who'd been impacted by the war on drugs, would have a really hard time raising the capital to get into the industry. And so the idea is we would de-verticalize that, so you can you can sell medical cannabis at a retail license level, you can deliver medical, you can cultivate just,
which is amazing. It just provides the opportunity
For
for
equity.
social equity to be able
Yes.
to have its own lane in this kind of scenario. And so let's talk about that real quick. That is only exclusive for social equity to be able to do. What's exclusive there for social equity? Like,
The
is
idea
there
is that there'd be an exclusivity period for social equity businesses to take advantage of that opportunity.
the vertically
Yeah.
integration thing?
So, like, if I'm I have a social equity business, retail,
Mm-hmm.
we could then apply and get a marijuana medical retail license, and an MSO couldn't. So,
Right.
You know, when we think about the fact that, who's selling medical right now, it's all mostly MSOs,
MSOs, yeah.
folks who can afford.
Absolutely. The two lines is what I say.
And people always ask me, they're like, "Is your shop rec or medical?" Like a rec, or they're like, "Oh, I have a med card." I'm like, "Oh, but you can still come here, but just you can't use the med card." And people want to use the med card. 'Cause
Yeah.
patients deserve that kind of access, and right now, they don't.
Yeah, because
So-
basically we're telling them now, like you unless they go through this other process, you can't really access your medical cannabis because the business isn't integrated. So
Yeah, it's antiquated. The kind of things you do to maintain medical versus recreation. I think,
Yeah.
it's important to divert.
centralize it.
Yeah, it's important what they're doing. That's a good part. Another good part. They have a increased purchase and possession limit.
2 ounce.
2 ounces. That's
Okay.
good. Everyone likes to buy more weed, have more weed.
I mean, it's good for the operators too because you shelling out more weed.
Yeah,
You know.
exactly. And now you're not, so that's good. And we think it's good for the CCC to review policies and procedures regarding workplace safety.
Absolutely.
We need that. We need workplace safety. That's just a given. And there's a whole piece around like employee stock ownership plans, allowing them to have retirement,
Yep.
opportunities. That's like if employees own a company, as opposed to like one person or like a board.
Yep.
So I think it's pretty cool.
That's dope, actually.
And then also an anonymous tip line, which would allow folks to call in and say, hey, this company, although you're only supposed to own 3, they own 6, and they are monopolizing the local market, and or they are doing something else bad, like they are not, having
Paying people.
safety, or
Right.
not paying people. They're, they're stiffing people on payment.
Manipulating their cannabis, whatever.
Yeah.
Testing.
Yeah, but then the big concerns really are just kind of existential for us as Equitable Opportunities Now and MCEC, and we've had coverage in the Commonwealth Mag and the Globe, other
Joint
places,
Memo and-
to talk about this, and so the doubling the license cap is super scary, and also at the CCC level, eliminating the independency capacity and social equity representation. So the CCC would actually be overhauled from a 5-person body
To a 3.
Right, to a 3, and it'd be a governor-appointed position. Right now, commissioners, if you are trying to open a business, you can email them and get contact. Even if you're not trying to open, you probably could email the commissioner and invite them on this podcast pretty easily. That would be a lot harder with a not full-time board that's focused on learning about the industry and getting out there and spreading the word, like you mentioned, because we need people to know more about the cannabis industry and how to get involved, not less. And it's a big change. It's almost like a good intention, maybe. I would like to think it's good intention. There has been, as you mentioned, things happening with the CCC that might be of concern, but at the same time, do we, you don't want to like throw the baby out with the bathwater kind of thing.
Yeah.
And for us, focusing on social equity, it's super important to have a commissioner on there that is focused on social equity, and to just get rid of that seemingly is kind of going in reverse from.
And are they going to just be general commissioners? Like they're not?
It's unclear
Because
they're not going to be social equity per se.
Okay, yeah, then that is alarming because I totally misunderstood that. Then I understood it as like they would still keep just 1 or 2, or like basically what's it called when they conjoin positions, like okay, this social equity and public safety seat will be now 1 commissioner.
Right.
So that's how I understood it. But if that's not the case, that's concerning because we need social equity should always be at the forefront in cannabis more than any other industry.
It's
like
a mandate, actually.
I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's like in there, it's written in the law. We don't have this for alcohol, like, you know what I mean? But it's also a totally different scenario. So in this case, we do need social equity at the front. So I'm curious to know what they're gonna do. But
we've been, this is the House, so the House has their bill that came out, their version,
And then the Senate.
is going to have their version. So if you care about social equity, now's the time to get involved with Mass Eon and support us in pushing back, talking to the Senate, getting folks to understand about how this would hurt us. And we have ideas around alternatives, like maybe we go to 4 and we then do a study on the impact, and maybe that, getting a 4th license that can only be done by social equity or from social equity, a way to ensure that, there's priority for social equity people in this new kind of change. But it feels pretty dramatic to do a big shift.
Yeah.
That's one thing that we're really trying to get.
I would
the word
agree.
out there.
I would agree. The big changes, I mean, I was like shocked to see how much of it was included. It just felt like all complaints were all put in one, and then just like a tiny bow. Naturally, you're going to have people that are like opposed to different provisions of that bill.
Yeah.
And so the part about like having, you know, some of the businesses, I feel like if we can do something where like, okay, either through strategic partnerships or whatever, you have to be conjoined together, at least with like a social equity business. If you're trying to do this, like somehow the benefit should go to a social equity licensee, or how can you empower somebody in this process so that they can then, you know, enter into the industry? Because there's so many people on queue still that have not been able to proceed from, you know, let's say provisional to final or pre-op to final.
8 years for us. And it's like, what kind
Crazy
of message are
work.
we sending? Right. And we've been blessed to not have 8 years of debt. You know, but we, you know what I'm saying? I mean, but we have debt still, though. We, you know, we have investors.
Yeah.
So, but it's just, but I guess I say that to say, yeah, it's a crazy game out there. And what kind of message are we sending to social equity businesses to say, you know, we are going to let MSOs expand and buy you out, and, you know, good luck.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, empowering. It's not necessarily about us having equity. It doesn't seem.
Yeah.
And so we're really hoping that the Senate has a different tune on their bill, and that in the conference that comes through that we get something that is not such a like big ugly. What do you call that?
Big beautiful bill, big ugly bill. I don't know, whatever you want.
Beautiful bill.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So, but yeah. Okay, so I mean, I think we pretty much covered at least the bill, unless you still have some things you want to mention. Because I think
pretty much feel like I covered all of like our points.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I think first of all,
one other piece.
Go ahead.
There would be an increase from right now. You can't own more than 10% of a business for that to qualify for your 3 licenses. So if you have more than 10% ownership, that you're now
capped.
You have one of your 3. That would go up to 35%, which means that there would be a lot of power from investors or people who are, you know, partnering with social equity people in their businesses. And the goal is to not have that kind of control. Yeah, it's supposed to be, you know, it's a partnership. So, you know, the intent behind that is to allow for more investment into these companies. And so, you know, again, we have thoughts around this kind of study, like how do we figure out whether or not this is a good idea without just jumping headfirst into this? And what does it mean that there's 20 plus social equity businesses like myself, you know, some provisional, most in operation, some with, you know, delivery, some with retail, all saying in unison, this is going to really hurt our situation.
Hurt our businesses.
Yeah, what does it mean for our legislature to continue to advance something that we don't like? So absolutely. Time will tell.
Time will tell. And I know they just recently passed the fiscal budget over to the governor. That was like maybe 2 days ago. But also on time for the first time, like in 100 years, but it really was more like 15. But at the very least, we do see that there is some willingness to work through it. And that I love and appreciate. And after this, we're going to see the bill from the Senate go over back to the House, and then the House then either yays or nays it. In conference committee, and then from then we will go ahead and see that go over to the governor's desk if it successfully passes through. So there's so much to still talk about in conversation, and I hope that people still feel that they can reach out and talk to one of these senators.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, y'all. It's like, you know, if you care about fact that your rent is high, stuff is high, your legislature right now is focused on expanding cannabis from 3 to 6 licenses. I mean, they're doing a lot of other stuff, you know, frankly, but like, you know, you should probably get on them about whatever else you care about too in the world. But also, if you care about social equity, say, hey, why are you focused on this? When there's, you know, other things in the world you should be focused on.
1,000%.
And other solutions that social equity businesses have put out there to actually help folks.
Yeah. And I hope that some of those solutions do translate into policy with data-driven, like supportive, like things that just support the conversation and the argument a little bit stronger, especially with regards to how we can see clearly social equity applicants have not had any sort of large, substantial, impactful benefit. We're probably going to see some things with the data from the Social Equity Trust Fund and how that has helped in terms of policies of what can help a social equity business. But, you know, overall, I would say probably the data will show you that we are not in position to be considered second or last in these scenarios.
And we did a report on who came out and testified at the one hearing there was about this bill, and majority of people that came out in opposition were social equity people. Majority of testimony in general was in opposition, and yeah, it's just like why in this one? When are we doing this? And it's important to know the people behind this push. It's high-powered lobbyists. People who, it's MSOs that have companies in other states. Ascend is a major player in this. Foley Hogg, which is a major law firm. This is like, big money, big people. And, we are trying to make sure that we protect our folks. So
yeah, for sure. Thank you for what you're doing. Yeah. And just before we wrap up, I know that we, obviously, we talked about this a little bit, but obviously with the work with the Boston Police camera work that you did there for accountability and just making sure, this aspect of like making sure there's accountability towards policing and having equitable, responses to how we then deal with our community when we're being policed. How do you feel like now where we're at with cannabis? Do you feel like there's still policing? Do you still feel like there's work to do? Yes. Like I'm thinking about people not necessarily operating, but people who have been negatively impacted, like yourself.
Yeah, outside of Massachusetts, I think there, there's other states that have still met, cannabis is super illegal, and you have a roach on you, you're going to jail, and that's not good. That's like right there. But then even in Mass, you have people, if you have a possession of a certain amount, you can get in trouble. I know there's an effort by some to make sure that for expungement that is an easier process. We've been a part of that too, that effort, and I think, though, the culture has changed in Massachusetts a ton since when I was younger, or in Boston since I was younger, where, you could be stopped and frisked just for, seemingly being a young black person. Or if you were smoking, you were being, kind of like, told to like, hey, but nothing now. The culture's more open. I mean, we don't have it like New York where it's legal to smoke in the street.
Yeah, public consumption is not a thing here.
Not a thing here, but there is it is a gray area thing.
Yeah, I was like.
Yeah, it's a gray area thing. And I mean, it's a gray area thing. So it's.
We'll see. And I think that for the most part, cops are like, whatever. Like, I don't want to spend my time on this shit.
Yeah. And I haven't looked at the data, like, so I don't know. Yeah. And maybe like, people who have, it's not.
There are still arrests.
Yes. Sure. Okay. Yeah. I definitely believe there's still arrests, and So. Okay. It's something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
The work is never fully done until it's done, and we'll know that when we're there. We're not there yet, though, clearly.
Yeah. No, I know. And I guess what's to come? I mean, now you have Firehouse Cannabis. We're so excited for the grand opening.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm probably going to be there.
Yes, you will.
Okay. I'll have a couple, buy a couple of fire gas. What was it that you said?
Firehouse.
The House of Fire.
The House of Fire. Exactly. Yeah. Stop, drop, and roll. That's the whole thing. Stop, drop, and roll.
I think I've seen that on like one of the things you got on the shelves. It's super cute. Well, I'm excited for you, and hopefully, at the end of this finish line, what is the sort of the deadline now moving forward for the bill? Oh, man. So people want to get involved from like July to.
Yeah, I think. Between now and June, and the end of June, but now and the end of August is really important to get involved and to get the word out there. And then December is the next kind of big deadline time. But really yesterday, so we need,
all hands on deck. You already
all
heard.
Hands on deck.
You already know. You heard it directly from
I think
Armani.
what's next is just getting this damn shop open and making sure that it's super profitable and we can do the damn thing for a long time.
Yeah.
And then. And then all the other things I'm involved in advancing. Right now, it's not a time to shrink in the face of attacks on social justice. It's a time to scale and grow and be, bigger, stronger, more powerful, and fearless. So that's what we're going to continue to do.
Stand in the face of fascism.
Exactly. We got to stand up to it. Someone's got to do it.
It's
like
true.
Kendrick said.
Right. Someone got to do it. Yeah. Hey. Well, thank you, Armani. I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
Thank you for having this platform.
Woo. Look, my hair came off.
There you go.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Did the sound okay and everything?
It wasn't recording. Kidding.
That shit would have been so funny. Did it?